Now, as you know, the perceived wisdom in football circles at the moment is that over the next couple of days, the announcement will be made, the appointment of Martin O'Neill as Republic of Ireland international team manager and assisted by Roy Keane. Now, Tony, you're always at the coalface when it comes to the Irish team. We've had no official announcement from the F.A.I. just yet. So is there any possibility at all that this won't come to pass?
Well, we've had no official denial either, and I think the deal is all but over the line. I was speaking to somebody within the F.A.I. today who said that they were really looking forward to working with both of them if it happens. And I think the details... Martin O'Neill is known to be very careful about his negotiations, and rightly so. This is a big commitment for him, and indeed for Roy Keane and the rest of the management team. But I think that it will happen over the next 24 hours. I reckon the F.A.I. would have preferred for it to be over the line now, and that they could have announced it before tomorrow night when Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane appear together on the ITV panel for the Champions League game. They're in San Sebastian at the moment. But I think Martin O'Neill starts working as the Irish manager tonight when he sits down face-to-face with Roy Keane, probably over dinner, and explains to him what he wants. They've spoken about it on the phone already, explains to him how he sees the vision for the future and what he expects of Roy in that vision.
Yeah, Tony, just briefly, we know that Roy can be one of the most divisive people in Irish football. How did it come to pass that he was chosen as the assistant? Is it Martin O'Neill's choice or is it the F.A.I.'s choice, as far as you know?
Well, I think everyone has seen that this is a good idea. I think Martin O'Neill wouldn't have accepted anybody he didn't want on his team, and he can see the value of Roy Keane to the ticket. But this man here knows very much about Roy Keane. Yeah. But all the talk about, you know, Roy Keane being divisive and difficult, well, he's actually not that difficult, is he, Brian? I mean, the fact is that he came...
I want to ask Brian, you were in charge when you brought Roy Keane back into the fold after the Saipan incident. So I'm sure there was an element of difficulty reintegrating him with the squad. What was that like at the time?
It wasn't very difficult. I think I had done the groundwork before I had spoken to Roy about the possibility of him coming back. And then I basically insisted with the group that I needed to get the best possible team out on the pitch to represent Ireland. And in my opinion, Roy Keane was in that lot, and he was in our best 11. And that I hadn't had any dispute with him. I had no row, I had no part or parcel in Saipan. So it wasn't my row, much at a personal level as I might have been disappointed that he hadn't played and that the whole thing hadn't been handled better to ensure that he played at the World Cup. I felt it was an obligation on my part to do my utmost to get him back playing, and I think the players accepted that. And by the time I was in charge, there was a little bit of a change in the squad. By then, I had players like Liam Miller and Colin Healy, John O'Shea coming into the team who hadn't been regulars, who hadn't been part of mixed team as such. And some of the other players who may have had difficulties with Roy, I explained to them, I heard their opinions. And, you know, I don't know whether they were supportive or not. I didn't really care. It was more about us getting the right team out and making sure the morale were in the group. And once...
So there were no issues in the dressing room?
No, and once Roy came back in, he was absolutely fine. He was committed, and he added something a little bit special to the group when he was there. Yeah,
he certainly did as a player. Richie, I've seen headlines everywhere, and it's been described as... ice meets fire and a match made in hell. What do you think of the imminent appointment?
A match made in hell as in O'Neill and Keane?
Yeah.
Well, I would agree. I would assume he's not going to be brought into the fold unless Martin O'Neill wants him there. From everything we know about Martin O'Neill, he's not the kind of person who's going to make a decision, allow someone else to make an appointment as important as that. The conversation that Tony alluded to there that's possibly happening between O'Neill and Keane to sort out what Keane's role would be, I'd be interested in what comes of that, because you can include O'Neill in this. Keane isn't a man for coaching. He's not usually on the training pitch. He wasn't at Sunderland or Ipswich. So what his role will be interested to find out what that is.
Yeah, Pat, how do you think the players will react to an iconic figure like Roy Keane in the dressing room, along with a manager of the stature of Martin O'Neill? How do you view that blend of personalities?
I think generally the players, the ones I've been talking to, have gone, wow. I mean, this is really, really exciting. And, you know, I think that's been the reaction from a lot of football fans. But you know what? If on the first occasion the new management team, the dream team, look at the squad and say, you're not on my starting 11, they'll soon change their tune. But, I mean, I think that Roy Keane has that power, doesn't he? That even if you think bad thoughts about him, you kind of think, well, I'm not sure I really want to say that. you know, you think, oh my goodness, would he be listening? Would he be upset if someone has a go at him? And I think he brings that to dressing rooms. And if you look at him, he got a very bad rap for his time at Sunderland, but he actually did a lot of good things there. And remember, when he came in that first season, he took them right from the bottom of the Championship to promotion. And, you know, whatever people think of the guy, he's got that presence. And the players, they're really excited about it.
Yeah, and I suppose from a fan's point of view, Tony, after the Trapattoni era, I think everybody wanted Irishmen back in the job, and they've got that on the double now, haven't they?
But, like, Pat often talks about the industry, the football industry that we have or we don't have in this country, but football is a business as well as a sport. Fans want us to play in a nice style, but the most important thing is results, and I think that's what the managers will be after. But also, the Keane and O'Neill as a double act is box office. So it will be bums on seats for the Aviva Stadium, it will be good for sponsors, it'll be good for television deals, and it'll be good for football down the line, I believe.
Yeah, and Brian, in terms of the two men together, I mean, surely, as a manager, you know yourself, hasn't the manager to be the ultimate power in the dressing room? We've heard many comments from the likes of Alex Ferguson of late because of the release of his book, etc., how control is all important. But could two figures of such influence divide a dressing room?
I wouldn't think so. As Richard said, I think Martin O'Neill, this is his call. If he's decided, he's a very, very intelligent man, just as Roy is, very driven, will know what he wants, and will have thought this through about the roles they're going to have. And, I mean, the adaptation is going to be for Roy to be a number 2 now. He's been the number 1 at Sunderland, been the main man at Manchester United, the captain. He was close to the manager, if you can be close to Alex. But he was number 1 at Ipswich. So now he's got to change his role a little bit and accept that he might now be the one out shouting and roaring on the touchline. If you think about Martin O'Neill and the roles he's had with Leicester, Celtic, Wickham, even back to Grantham Town, he's always been the one out front, jumping up in the air when the goal is scored.
Yeah.
I asked people, what was John Robertson like? They didn't see him, Steve Walford. They were in the background. Martin did the interview. So is Roy going to be like that? But I'm sure he's going to have an impact on the atmosphere in the dressing room and in the messages he gives to the players. And he's always been very strong about demanding good standards and about the idea of not accepting that anyone is better than us, that we can beat anybody. So I think that's a very important influence. I think they'll blend fine. I'm not sure what the role is going to be, but I'd be comfortable that Martin O'Neill can dictate the role well for Roy and that they will work well together.
It's a gamble, I suppose, and it's an expensive gamble because this won't come cheap. I mean, the management team of Keane, O'Neill,
the last one wasn't cheap either, Tony. The one before might have been.
But it is a management team, and it's a lot of money. But the rewards are there if we qualify for the extended European Championships, and it will be worth it.
That should be a bit of a doddle now, Tony. I mean, look, there's 53 teams in it now, and Gibraltar have just got to be one of those 53. I walked around today, and there's 12 that you can dismiss straight off. So you've got to be 24 out of 40.
We have a great chance.
Come on.
There's no doubt about it.
What's important is that when we qualify, if we qualify, and hopefully we will, that we do better than the last time. I think that's going to have to be the bottom line.
Yeah, I want to look just a little bit further down the line, Pat, and how this might be of benefit to the Republic of Ireland and the F.A.I, because Roy Keane is coming in as an assistant. He's coming in under a very good manager. He'll obviously learn a lot about the international scene, and therefore he'll boost his chances the next time the job becomes available. Do you think that's on anybody's mind at this point, or is that looking far too far in the distance?
I'm sure it's in Roy Keane's mind, because it's certainly come from Martin O'Neill. There's no F.A.I. involvement in the appointment. It's come from the manager himself. He's decided this will be good. And it's a very smart move, because actually there's a degree to their careers where they've both been struggling a little bit recently. And how I define that if you look at the backgrounds they both come from, when Premier League jobs come up, they might be possibly in contention, especially O'Neill more so than Keane, but they're not probably going to get a job, and certainly not what a lot of people consider to be a decent Premier League job, although every Premier League gig is a good one. So, the worry that people would have is that this will be volatile, that at some stage there'll be a blow-up. But where I'd be encouraged is that both of them can't afford for it to fail. And when you've got two great personalities, and remember, international football is very, very different to club football. We talk about coaching. It's really about tactics. It's about keeping players happy, how you handle the guys that aren't in the team, and getting results. And I think it's these two, when they walk in that dressing room, not only will they energise that stadium that hasn't really come to life since we've gone back to Lansdowne Road, the Aviva, but my goodness me, those players will look at those two and say, hey, this is serious.
Well, this is serious, and everybody hopes it succeeds. But, Richie, if you have reservations, where does your deepest reservation lie with the appointment and with the combination of Roy Keane and Martin O'Neill?
I don't think it's so much the combination of the two. It's what's been said tonight. What is Keane's role going to be? Yeah. It's not going to be a coaching role. What O'Neill demands from him, or what Keane himself provides for the players, I'm unsure yet as to what that would be. Because of all the things we know about Keane, as Brian said, he's been the main man everywhere. Everywhere he goes, and even now in discussions, he's the main man. Yeah. You can call him a sniss and call him number two. Everywhere, everywhere he's been. And it's with the squad, and O'Neill will have to get used to the fact that anyone talks about the Irish team from now on, they're talking about Roy.
Well,
so
that's probably what's going to happen, and one thing is for certain: the level of interest in all things related to our international team will rise as a result, and watching it all unfold will be intriguing. And let's hope they're the most successful managerial team since Clough and Taylor.